Today I want to show you an HL7 conformance statement. A lot of people will call this an interface spec document. That's kind of a colloquial industry term. Whether you call it an HL7 conformance statement or an interface spec document, this is what it looks like, and you'll work with these a lot, so we need to get used to looking at them. This is for an AGFA Impacts 6.0 pack system, so it's important to remember that this is a pack system HL7 document, and this is what the front cover looks like. It's not all that exciting. When you scroll down here, you run into the table of contents. The table of contents is very handy. It tells you that Chapter 1 is about the introduction. Chapter 2 is specific to inbound messages, messages coming into packs. Chapter 3 is outbound, messages going out of packs. And Chapter 4 is about queries. So if you need to look up information about what outbound messages come out of your pack system, you would want to go to Chapter 3. If you want to look at how your pack system handles HL7 queries, you want to go to Chapter 4. That's the purpose of the contents. So let's just work down through this. Here's the introduction. I like this part right here. It says, readers not familiar with HL7 terminology should first read the appropriate parts of the HL standard itself prior to reading this conformance statement. You could learn HL7 by reading the HL7 standards and teach it to yourself. That's the way most PACS admins and all the instructors in this course learned HL7. I think you are lucky to have us to help guide you through it and explain it. So then you have the acronyms and abbreviations. If you didn't know what EVN was, it would tell you it's the event type segment. If you didn't know what IHE is, it's integrating the healthcare enterprise. So acronyms and abbreviations, whenever this document uses a 3-letter code you don't understand, you can come to acronyms and abbreviations and look it up. The related documents tells you what HL7 standard this particular document is referencing. So it's handy to know whether you're working with version 2.5, 2.7, 2.3. Here's Chapter 2. These are the inbound messages. Again, this is what is supported by the pack system for inbound HL7 messages. And if you look closely, you will see that it doesn't support all 62 ADT event codes. It only supports a subset of those event codes. So an ADT A16, not supported. A ADT 24, not supported. An ADT A30, yes, that is supported. So you can read through that list and see which event trigger codes for ADT messages are supported. And then here is the ADT segment sequence. When an ADT message comes to packs, it needs the segments in this exact sequence. As we've learned, segment sequence matters. If the segments are out of sequence, it generates an error code, so it must be in that segment sequence. Here are the supported ORM events. There's only one trigger event code that it supports for ORM messages. This is interesting. This is the table for ORC1. We've talked in the past about how important ORC1 is, and we've taught you the 3 standard values: NW for new, CA for cancel, and SC for status change. It also supports several other values that we haven't talked about, and we won't talk about because most people don't use these, but if you did get them with different values, it would support them. And this is the segment sequence for ORMs. Remember, this is all only in inbound messages. Again, you have the supported event code for ORUs, the segment sequence for ORUs, and now you have the segment mappings. Okay, right? So in an MSH segment, field 1 should be the field separator. It's required, and in the comments it's usually the vertical bar. 2, the encoding characters. Yes, it's required. And it's usually the standard encoding characters that we see. And that's interesting, right? That it says usually. Because remember, you can change the encoding characters, and if you did, it would learn the new mappings. It would learn what you put if you switched the vertical bar to asterisk. It would learn that and it would take it. It's just saying we usually expect to find these things in there. So here's all the fields in an MSH segment. Again, only for an inbound messages, whether it's required by HL7 any special comments. This is the PID segment. This is the PV1 segment, AL1 segment, MRG segment, ORC segment, OBR segment, OBX segment, right? So if you're thinking, wait, we haven't talked about an MRG segment. What the heck is an MRG segment? Where would you go to figure that out? Well, you probably want to go all the way back up to those definitions at the very beginning. And it would tell you that an MRG segment is a merge patient information segment. It's not a segment we talk about. It's a bad segment. It does bad things. You shouldn't use merge segments. But if you want to know what that was, that's why those abbreviations are listed in the beginning, in the introduction. So now we come down to chapter 3, and these are the outbound messages. These are only the messages that PAX sends out. And here you have the trigger codes, which is even less than what it will take in. It's however many ADTs and 1 ORM, and those are the only outbound messages that we'll send. Again, you have the field table for each of the different segments. Right, so whenever you have a problem, if you want to know if that field is required or not, right, you want to know if the universal service ID is required, on an outbound OBR segment, you would go here, find this, say, oh, yes, it's a required value. No, there's no default mapping. There are several sources for this field. You know, this is a reference document that you look up to solve problems and questions and issues. And we're going to give you a worksheet with a whole bunch of problems and things you need to find out. And you're going to use this specific interface spec document or conformance statement to find the answers. That's going to be one of your activities this week. So, chapter 4, queries. This is the query MSH segment, the QRD segment, responses to queries, how PAX will behave in response to HL7 queries. And that's the end of the document. Hopefully you have a good idea how to use it, and you'll be successful in your worksheet activity this week. Thank you for watching.